Hello there, brothers and sisters. Just going beyond what I've tried to tell you a bunch of times. And if you're not looking for the Islamic connection in Temple Mount, I'll just go for a different topic, which is why creationism is actually correct and why science is actually not correct. And when it comes down to the philosophical question, the one thing that you'll never get a scientific response for is, how does consciousness exist? You can explain things in the most rhetorical standpoint, whether it be a Big Bang or evolution or everything else. But at the end of the day, you can never explain consciousness. And that's what religion really gets to, is that all intelligence comes from an intelligent creator. Now, where things get different is people don't know exactly where did God come from, or just the fact that rather he always existed. May not be in human form or as we see it in the physical realm, but certainly as a spiritual or intelligent form. He's been around for ever. He's the Alpha and the Omega. But going back to it, again, I would ask anyone who disagrees with creationism, how do you explain consciousness? Why are we the only species that prays to a higher being who even has the capacity to think of a higher being? And if you go through that, you can't explain it. It's not like monkeys eventually came to the point of turning into humans and then, oh, wait, there's a greater human. Wait, no, it would be a greater. Oh, yeah, it doesn't make any sense. Circular logic. We run into that in science all the time. So you can look through a telescope and you can see the light of a planet. And that light, depending on various different factors or whatever lens you're using, becomes how far it is and what its composition is. And it's all based on these really minute calculations where the slightest margin of error creates a multiplier effect, in the sense that if you adjust from 50 degrees to 45, your adjustment factor would probably be about 10-15%, probably less. But when you go from 1% down to a half a percent, you go from a 99 multiplier to a 200 multiplier, right? So that's a big jump. And when you're dealing with calculations that have these infinitesimally small things, you have these vastly different expectations when you're doing astronomical calculations. Really, it's all BS. How do we explain it? Oh, well, there's dark matter, or there's dark energy, or there's some other force that we just don't know. But that's science. But the idea that we all come from an infinite creator, that's crazy. But it's really not. If you use the biblical account, as the biblical account says, we're really approaching the 6,000th year. The first 2,000 after the initial fall basically became the contentions of human versus spirit. And on the human side, we know what happened. There was a flood. Noah was the only survivor. Well, Noah and his family. On the spiritual realm, we know that Satan and the judgment just went through. We know from Genesis 6 that they probably mated, and humans and the polytheistic religions of old and the Hammurabi Code, it's all there. Didn't really turn out too well. Then after the flood, things have changed, and we made the covenants on earth with Abraham that took us through the Jewish lineage. And there's a lot of other stuff there, but I'll just go through the 2000 that led to Christ, with the 2000 in the spirit realm. And at that time, Israelis were basically fulfilling the law that God had commanded, and basically everybody else wasn't. And it wasn't until Jesus fulfilled the law where the covenant changed. And we know when that happened, everything switched. So the original curse, where you shall surely die, got reversed because Christ fulfilled, in more or less terms, everything that needed to be fulfilled. So he was God, and once his basically body died, the spirit was brought back up to the Father. Everything was needed in order to restore life and basically bring everything back to the Father. Now, from that point on, everybody who can accept Christ as their Savior will be saved up until this 6,000 year point. Now, Theodicy would tell you who can and can't, and I'll go into that in the next video. But right now, the victor here is Christ. So everything on earth is going to explain away how Christ doesn't exist. So that's where science comes in, right? So we use carbon dating, which is probably inaccurate beyond a certain amount of years, or basically up into the flood point, right? Because how do you explain a lot of the natural mountains and everything else? If there's a flood, sediment, shake-up, makes perfect sense. The problem is that science can't describe that, right? So it's Big Bang, and well, there's erosion over time, and the Colorado River made the Grand Canyon. It's all horseshit. We all know it's horseshit, but it makes us explain away what we don't want to accept, which is we're all sinners saved by grace. And if you can't accept that, you are probably gonna have a bad time when the final hour hits. But anyhow, I hope you all realize that science, you can understand the math and everything else, but you, at the end of the day, don't really understand anything. It just attempts to explain away the greater understanding of, you can't explain away the fact that we have an intelligent creator. You just can't. And you can't explain away the fact that you needed a redeemer. You needed a God living in human form, as Christ provided, to bring the spirit and humans back to break the curse, break the fall. But a lot of this comes down to Theodicy. I'm just telling you, science doesn't have it. God bless y'all.